Let me paint you a picture of what June can actually look like in your yard this summer. You walk outside on a Saturday morning, coffee in hand, no mower running, no hose dragging across the lawn, no kneeling in the dirt, pulling weeds that came back 3 days after you pulled them last time. Instead, you are just standing there looking at something that is genuinely alive. Color moving in layers from the ground up, bees working so hard you can hear them before you see them. A hummingbird hovering at something red near the back fence, so close and so still for a moment that you actually hold your breath. Your neighbors slow down when they walk past, not because you worked harder than them, not because you spent more than them, because you made 9 planting decisions this June that they did not make. And by August, those 9 decisions have turned into something that looks like it cost serious money and serious time and serious expertise, and it cost none of those things. That is what fast-spreading perennials do when you plant them at exactly the right moment in exactly the right place. They fill empty ground without being asked. They multiply while you are doing something else. They come back every single year bigger and more beautiful and more established than the season before. June is the window right now, and I am about to give you the exact 9 plants that make that picture real. If this channel is new to you, subscribe right now before we go any further, because this is exactly what Bloomroots puts out every single week, and you do not want to keep finding these videos 6 months after you needed them. Hit that button and let us get into plant 1. Plant 1, Shasta Daisy. I want to start with this one because it is the plant that most people have seen in someone else's yard. Admired, genuinely, assumed was complicated and never planted. It is not complicated. Leucanthemum X superbum is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 9, and it produces the kind of classic, clean, unmistakable beauty that does not go out of style the way trendy ornamentals do. Crisp white petals radiating out from a bold, bright yellow center, blooming from early summer all the way into fall. Months of continuous color from a single June planting decision. And here is the part that makes it exceptional for filling a garden fast. It spreads 2 ways simultaneously. The root mass expands outward each season, producing more and more flowering stems from the same plant, and it self-seeds gently around itself, creating new plants in the spaces between existing clumps without becoming aggressive or unmanageable. You plant one this June. By year 2, you have a clump. By year 3, you have a sweeping mass of white and yellow that looks completely intentional and completely designed and cost you the price of 1 nursery plant and nothing more after that. Full sun, well-draining soil, and deadhead the spent blooms regularly to keep new flowers coming. That is the complete care program. And here is the thing about Shasta daisies that I think about every time I see them performing in someone's garden in late July when everything else is struggling. They look like a professional decision. They look expensive and considered and placed with intention. They are none of those things. They are just the right plant, given the right conditions in the right month, and then left alone to become what they were always going to become. Plant 2, Coreopsis moonbeam. If I had to choose one word for this plant, it would be relentless. Not in an aggressive, taking over the garden way, in the way that it simply never stops producing flowers from the moment it starts in early summer until frost shuts it down in fall. Coreopsis verticillata. Moonbeam is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9, and it produces a continuous cloud of delicate, buttery yellow daisy-like flowers sitting just above fine, feathery, mounding foliage, in a combination that is soft and elegant and somehow simultaneously understated and impossible to ignore. The spreading mechanism is underground rhizomes that creep quietly outward beneath the soil's surface, establishing new growth points and expanding the plant's footprint season after season without breaking the surface, until you suddenly realize the plant is significantly larger than it was last year without you doing anything to encourage it. What makes Moonbeam exceptional beyond its visual qualities is how completely it refuses to be stressed. Heat, fine. Drought, fine. Poor soil, better actually. Neglect, preferred. This is the plant you put in the hot, dry strip along your driveway that bakes all afternoon, the south-facing slope that pulls moisture away from everything, the spot where you have already tried 2 other things and lost them both. Moonbeam goes in there and performs as if it was always supposed to be in the most difficult part of your yard, which in a sense it was. Plant 3, Salvia May Night. This one stops conversations. Not the way a dramatic tropical stops conversations by looking exotic and temporary and slightly out of place. The way a deeply right, deeply permanent, deeply considered plant stops conversations by looking like someone who understood exactly what they were doing, planted it in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Salvia nemorosa. May Night is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 8, and it sends up tall, upright spikes of the most intense, deep violet blue flowers you will see in a June garden, rising above dark, aromatic foliage in a vertical accent that creates genuine architectural drama in a way that mounding and spreading plants simply cannot replicate on their own. The color is so rich and saturated that on an overcast day it seems to generate its own light. On a bright afternoon it photographs like something a garden designer staged for a magazine shoot. And the care requirements for all of that impact are almost embarrassing in their simplicity. Full sun, well-drained soil, room to breathe. Cut it back after the first flush of flowers, and it rebounds in 3 weeks with a second wave nearly as strong as the first. 2 full seasons of that violet-blue drama from one June planting at no additional cost. Deer leave it alone because of the aromatic foliage. Bees work it with an intensity that is audible on warm mornings. It pairs with almost anything you place near it and makes everything near it look more considered. This is the plant that makes your garden look like a design decision rather than a collection of things you tried. 3 plants in, and If Bloom Roots is already changing how you think about what your garden is capable of this summer. Subscribe right now, not at the end. Right now before plant 4, because the gardeners who subscribe in the middle of a video at this channel are the ones who actually follow through. They are the ones who go to the nursery this weekend. They are the ones who send me photographs in August of yards that look completely transformed from what they were in May. Hit that button. It takes 4 seconds. And this level of honest, practical gardening information finds you every single week from this point forward. Do it now and then keep going, because plant 4 is the one that blooms when everything else in your garden is starting to look tired and finished. Plant 4, Black-Eyed Susan Goldsturm. Picture your garden in the second week of August. Most perennials have finished their peak. The spring flush is a memory. The early summer bloomers are winding down. And there is that familiar feeling of a garden entering its slow fade toward fall that most gardeners have accepted as inevitable. Rudbeckia fulgida Goldsturm is the plant that tells that narrative it is wrong. Hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9, it blooms from midsummer all the way through October. 4 full months of golden yellow petals radiating around a near black center, so vivid and so relentless that when your neighbors' gardens are brown and exhausted in August, yours is producing the most saturated color on the street. University performance trials confirm that Goldsturm specifically, not the standard species, but this cultivar, blooms longer and more prolifically under real garden conditions than any comparable Rudbeckia available to American home gardeners. It spreads through underground rhizomes, expanding the root colony quietly each season, and through seed heads that drop seeds and germinate into new plants the following spring, building a colony over years that costs you nothing beyond the original June planting. Leave those seed heads standing through winter, and goldfinches work them from October through February, giving your yard more bird activity in the coldest months than your neighbors' tidy cutback beds will see all season. Plant it this June in full sun in average to poor soil, and then practice the discipline of leaving it completely alone and watching it become the colony it has been trying to become. Every season you are fighting it with the wrong plants. Plant 5, yarrow. I want to tell you about the spot in my yard that convinced me yarrow was something different from everything else I had planted up to that point. South-facing strip along the back fence, full afternoon sun from noon until dark, soil so dry and compacted it was almost white in summer. I had tried 3 things in that strip in 3 years and lost all 3 of them by August. Not because I neglected them, I actually paid attention to them, watered them, tried to give them what they needed. They died anyway because that spot was genuinely hostile to plants that needed anything at all from their environment. Achillea millefolium is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9, and it does not need anything from its environment. Flat-topped flower clusters in yellow, white, pink, coral, and deep red above feathery silver-green aromatic foliage, blooming for months, spreading through underground rhizomes and self-seeding simultaneously, filling that strip faster and more completely than anything I had tried in 3 years of failing at it. And here is the detail that genuinely surprised me when I learned it. Yarrow releases natural compounds into the surrounding soil that actively suppress weed germination in the area around it. You're not just planting a flower. You are installing a biological weed suppression system that runs continuously and costs you nothing after planting day. Give it your worst ground, the driest, rockiest, most neglected spot you have. Rich amended soil makes it floppy and disappointing. Poor, hostile ground makes it bloom harder and spread more confidently than you expected. That strip along my back fence that defeated everything for 3 years is yarrow's idea of ideal conditions. That realization changed how I think about difficult spots permanently. Plant 6, daylily. There's a reason this plant has been in American gardens for generations, and a reason experienced gardeners always have it and always will. Hemerocallis is hardy in USDA zones 1 through 11, which is genuinely the entire country without exception. And the variety available to you is staggering in a way that most gardeners do not fully appreciate until they start looking seriously. Over 80,000 registered cultivars in deep burgundy, soft peach, bright orange, pale lemon, rich purple, vivid red, creamy white, and bicolors that look almost painted. Each individual flower lasts one day, which is where the name comes from, but each plant produces so many buds on so many stems that there is always something new opening, always something just finishing, always that sense of abundance and renewal that a garden bed should produce from June through mid-fall. The root system expands outward each season, producing new fans of foliage and more flowering stems. And every 4 to 5 years, you divide the clump, and one plant becomes 10 to 15. At current nursery prices, one original daylily eventually produces over $100 worth of free plants from your own yard. That dense, leafy growth shades the ground so completely that weeds cannot establish beneath it. One important note I always include because it matters. Daylilies are acutely toxic to cats, every part including the pollen. If cats spend time in your garden, skip this one or fence it carefully. For everyone else, this plant is one of the most reliable color investments you will ever make in a garden bed. 6 plants in, and I want you to take 30 seconds right now and drop a comment below. Tell me the one spot in your yard that has defeated every single plant you have ever tried in it. The dry strip, the shaded corner, the slope that erodes, the dead zone under the big tree. Tell me what state you garden in. I read every single comment at Bloomroots. I respond to as many as I can, and your specific situations shape exactly what this channel covers next. Post it below right now and then come back, because Plant 7 is the one that solves the deer problem that spray bottles and temporary fencing have been failing to solve for years. Plant 7 kept Walker's low. If deer have quietly dismantled your garden 2 summers running, and you have reached the point where you're done being patient about it, this is the conversation you needed before you spent another dollar on anything that goes in the ground. Nepeta ex Fascinie. Walker's Low is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 8, and it produces lavender blue flowers over silvery aromatic foliage from late spring through midsummer in a soft cascading mound that flows naturally over pathway edges, border fronts, and driveway edges with zero effort or training from you. It finds its own shape, and its shape is elegant in a way that looks like someone placed it deliberately, which in a sense you did. Deer evaluate plants by scent before they taste them. Walker's Low's aromatic oils are strong enough to put them off at the approach stage, before contact happens, before they are close enough to do damage. Unlike spray repellents that wash off in rain and degrade in UV and need reapplying every 2 weeks all season, this plant is the repellent. It is always on, every day, all season, every season, without a single reapplication or additional cost. Cut it back by half after the first bloom flush. 3 weeks later, it returns fuller and more vigorous than before with a complete second wave of flowers carrying through late summer. 2 full bloom seasons from one plant in 1 year at no extra cost. Bees work at numbers that make the planting audible on warm mornings. It solves your deer problem, fills your border with 2 seasons of color, and supports more pollinator species than most gardeners expect from a single perennial. That is 3 problems resolved by one June planting decision. Plant 8, garden phlox. There is one plant on this entire list that you will smell before you see it, not from a few feet away, from across the yard. On a still summer evening standing near your back door with a glass of something cold, you will catch the fragrance before you even look up to find where it is coming from. And that moment, that specific unhurried evening moment, is why gardeners have grown this plant continuously for over 100 years and will keep growing it for 100 more. Phlox paniculata is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 8, and it produces large dome-shaped flower clusters, sometimes 6 inches or more across, packed tightly with individual florets in pink, purple, deep red, pure white, and striking bicolors, blooming in mid to late summer precisely when the spring flush is finished and your garden needs something to step forward and carry it through to fall. The fragrance on a still evening carries 30 feet from the plant. It fills outdoor seating areas. It comes through open windows into rooms you are not even in. It spreads steadily by pushing outward from the central crown, filling more and more border space each season in good conditions. Cut stems and bring them inside. And garden phlox in a vase fills an entire room with fragrance for a full week. There is one issue worth addressing honestly. Garden phlox can develop powdery mildew in hot, humid conditions. The solution is simple, and it works. Choose mildew-resistant cultivars, David for pure white, Robert Poor for vibrant purple-pink, and water at the base rather than overhead. Those 2 decisions together give you years of spectacular, fragrant bloom without the mildew reputation ever becoming your experience. Plant 9, bee balm. Every plant on this list earns its place through color, through spreading, through low maintenance, through the beauty it adds to your garden from June through fall. This one earns its place through a moment. A specific, unrepeatable, unforgettable moment that happens in your own backyard on an ordinary summer morning and stays with you longer than you expect something so simple to stay with you. Monarda didyma is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9, and it produces spiky tubular blooms in blazing red, deep pink, rich purple, and bright white that look unlike anything else in the garden. That tubular shape is not just distinctive, it is biologically engineered for one specific visitor. The beak of a hummingbird fits inside perfectly, and once a ruby-throated hummingbird finds your bee balm, it comes back. Every day. All season. Sometimes hovering 2 feet from your face while you're sitting on your porch in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Close enough that you can see the iridescent green of its back catching the light, close enough that you hold your breath without deciding to. That moment is what plant 9 is about. Bee balm spreads enthusiastically through underground rhizomes, filling a large space within 2 to 3 seasons. Divide it every 2 to 3 years to keep it vigorous and contained in a formal border, or give it room in a naturalized area and let it run. It wants full sun to partial shade with consistent moisture. And choose mildew-resistant cultivars for the best long-term performance. Jacob Klein for deep red, raspberry wine for rich pink. Both perform across most American growing zones with far less maintenance than older varieties. Monarchs visit, tiger swallowtails visit, bumblebees work it constantly. One planting of bee balm supports more wildlife species than almost anything else on this list combined. And that hummingbird moment, the one I just described, that is available to you this August if you put bee balm in the ground this June. The window is open right now. Here is what ties all 9 of these together into something more than a plant list. June soil temperatures across most American growing zones are sitting between 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit right now. That is the precise biological window where perennial root systems establish fastest, reach deepest, and build the drought resilience they need to survive their first American summer without daily intervention from you. Plant in this window, and roots have 8 to 10 weeks of warm, productive soil before the hardest heat of July and August arrives. Miss this window, wait until late summer, and those same plants are trying to establish in conditions that split their energy between rooting and surviving, rather than letting them focus entirely on building the underground architecture that makes them genuinely self-sufficient the following year. June is not a suggestion. It is a biological window that is open right now and has a closing date whether you use it or not. 3 things to know before you plant any of these that most gardening content skips entirely. First, stop amending the soil for tough, native, and well-adapted perennials. A rich, heavily fertilized ground makes yarrow floppy, makes coreopsis stop blooming, makes salvia lose its upright form. These plants were built for average to poor soil, and that is the condition that activates their best performance. Plant them in the ground you have. Second, water once at planting, deeply enough to settle soil around the roots, and then exercise genuine restraint. Overwatering in the establishment phase produces shallow root systems that never develop the drought tolerance these plants are capable of. The goal is deep roots, not wet soil, and those are produced by infrequent deep watering, not frequent surface watering. Third, and this is the instruction that improves every season that follows, leave the seed heads standing through winter. The seed heads you cut down in October are the food source that goldfinches and sparrows and chickadees depend on through the coldest months. They are the overwintering habitat that beneficial insects need to return to your garden next spring. They are the self-seeding mechanism that multiplies your plants for free while the ground is frozen. Leave them standing until late February. Cut back in early spring before new growth emerges. Your garden will be more alive, more ecologically connected, and more naturally beautiful through winter than anything managed the conventional way on your street. You came into this video with a garden that might have open ground, might have difficult spots you have given up on, might have a history of spring optimism and August disappointment. You are leaving with 9 plants, a planting window that is open right now, and a completely different understanding of what low maintenance actually means. It does not mean no plants. It means the right plants. Plants that were built for the conditions you actually have, rather than the conditions the garden center pretends you have. Pick 3 from this list right now, just 3. Put them in the ground this week. And then walk outside 60 days from now with a coffee in your hand on a Saturday morning and look at what they became while you were living your life. That moment, that specific quiet Saturday morning moment, is what Bloom Roots is actually about. If this video gave you a real plan for this June, subscribe right now, hit the bell. Drop a comment below and tell me which plant you're putting in the ground first and what state you garden in. I rate every single comment, I respond to as many as I can, and what you tell me shapes exactly what Bloom Roots covers next. This is your garden. This is your June. The window is open right now. Go plant something that comes back better every single year.